Welcome back, Awesome Possums! Today I'd like to read to you the story, Jake's 100th Day of School. It is written by Lester L. Laminack and it's illustrated by Judy Love. I bet you know what this story is going to be about. You're right! Just by reading the title, we know that this story will be about the 100th day of school. As we read each page, make sure you practice noticing and wondering. Mr. Thompson's class was excited. Tomorrow would be the 100th day of school. Every day since school began, Mr. Thompson started class by adding one link to the Good Morning chain. Tomorrow they would add the 100th link and all the students would bring their collections of 100 things. Mr. Thompson said that he had a superific surprise plan too, a visit from Jake's Grandma Maggie. Everyone knew that meant something wonderful would happen. When school was out that day, Jake and his friends chattered about their projects. I have 98 bottle caps, Henry said. Just 2 more to go. My dad and I can drink that much juice when I get home. I'm done, said Douglas. My mom helped me collect the last of my 100 signatures in our office last week. I have 87 paper clips, Emily chimed in. I need 13 more to make 100, and I got those from Mr. Booker in the library today. I'm working on a book of memories, Jake said. I collected 100 pictures of my family, and I've put most of them in my book already. Let's stop for a moment, boys and girls, and let's notice and wonder what's going on these 2 pages. I noticed Mr. Thompson looking very intently on what looks to be a hamster in his classroom. Look at the silly glasses he has on his face. I wonder if they have 100 dots all around them. On the next page, I noticed Jake rushing out the door. I also noticed he left something behind. I wonder if he'll regret that later. Let's take a moment to notice and wonder what's happening on this page. I notice Mr. Thompson seems to be very happy. He has a smile on his face. I notice on the wall checks, lots of checks. Wonder if there's 100 of them. I also notice lots of colored strips. Over here, I notice Jake rushing out the door. I also notice he left something on the table. I wonder if that was very important and something that he should be taking to school with him. Well, let's read and find out. Mr. Thompson was in the classroom very early on the 100th day. He wanted to have everything ready for the big event. Yep, he said to himself, today is the big day. Jake was so excited about the 100th day that he rushed out the door to catch the bus. But he left something very important at home. He didn't even think about his book bag until the bus stopped for Emily. When he saw her wearing a chain of paper clips around her neck, Jake felt a flutter in his stomach. When he saw Henry boarding the bus with 100 bottle caps glued to a poster, Jake felt a lump in his throat. When Douglas showed his collection of 100 signatures, big tears welled up in Jake's eyes. I noticed all of the kids seemed to be excited, and I noticed that Jake does not seem to be very excited. Let's take a moment to notice and wonder this on this page. I noticed things flying all around the school. I noticed a little girl with looks to be an apron or a smock with some types of stars or shapes on them. I noticed this little boy here. I can't tell what those are. Could they be flowers? Oh my, I noticed someone carrying in a box of what looks like to be donuts. 100 donuts? Wow. Oh, I noticed someone's bag bursting open and everything falling around. And I noticed this man, he must be the custodian, looking like, what? I wonder if the custodian is a little frustrated about all the commotion that's going on in the school today. By the time Jake arrived at school, he was surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of things. 100 buttons, 100 marbles, 100 rubber bands, and sailing all around his head, 100 paper planes. 100 cookies, 100 pencils, 100 beads in braids, and hanging from a wooden rod, 100 lucky cranes. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. "Good morning, Jake," said Mrs. Wadsworth, the principal. "Are you set for the 100th day of school?" Jake stood like a statue and looked at her. He couldn't make a word come out of his mouth. He couldn't stop the tears spilling from his eyes. "Did you forget?" Mrs. Wadsworth asked. His voice was softer than a pillow. Jake could only nod his head. Mrs. Wadsworth put her arm around his shoulders. "Come on in my office. We'll think of something." I wonder what the two will think of. What could be in our office? What could she have 100 of? Let's notice and wonder. I notice Mrs. Wadsworth's hands are in the air like she's trying to explain something to Jake. And I notice his face looks so sad. I don't notice anything on her desk that there could be 100. Do you, boys and girls? Jake climbed into the big chair. Mrs. Wadsworth sat next to him. "Could we call someone at home to bring your collection?" she asked. "Everyone's at work," Jade said, sniffling. "Grandma Maggie's not home either. She's getting ready for the superific surprise." "Let's check around here," said Mrs. Wadsworth. "I bet we can find 100 of something." "I don't know," Jake said. 100 is a whole lot of stuff. "Do you suppose I have 100 paper clips in this jar?" she asked, lifting it for him to see. "Doesn't look like 100, Jake said. "Besides, Emily is wearing 100 paper clips." He looked around the office. "Mrs. Wadsworth, all you've got in here in your office is books. Lots and lots of books." "I guess we could make a collection of books." "Absolutely, Jake," Mrs. Wadsworth said with a smile. 100 books would make a wonderful collection for a super reader like you. Let's see if I have that many." Jake and Mrs. Wadsworth took books from the shelves. They counted 10 books and made a stack, 10 more and 10 more until they had 10 stacks. Jake touched each stack as he carefully counted them. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. "Wow, Mrs. Wadsworth, that's 100 books." All right, let's notice and wonder on this page. Do you notice all of the things the boys and girls have brought in? I notice a smile on Jake's face. I notice a camera on Mr. Wadsworth's chest. I wonder if he's going to take pictures of all of this. I would if I were him. Together they rolled the cart of books down the hallway to room 24. Jake added his collection to all the others. Then he made a sign, 100 books from Mrs. Wadsworth's office. When all the projects were on display, Mr. Thompson told the class that it was time to begin the 100th day of school. "Mrs. Wadsworth he said, before you go back to your office, Would you add the 100th link to the good morning chain? This morning was filled with even more hundreds. The 100th check was marked on the I fed Goldilocks chart. The 100th knot was tied on the days of reading rope. And some of the kids took turns sharing their collection of 100 things. Let's take a moment to notice and wonder on this page. I noticed two women coming into the room, and I noticed one woman with a stick or a cane with all kinds of ribbons. I wonder if there's 100 ribbons on that stick. Then around 10 o'clock there was a knock at the door. When Mr. Thompson opened it, Jake's Grandma Maggie came in with someone the kids had never seen. The surprised visitor walked with a wooden stick, stepping very slowly into the room. "Good morning, boys and girls," Grandma Maggie said. "This is my Aunt Lula. Can anyone guess why I brought my Aunt Lula for the 100th day of school?" "Maybe it's 'cause of that stick," Henry said. "I'll bet there's 100 ribbons on it." Aunt Lula eased into Mr. Thompson's chair and chuckled. "Well, you are a very clever boy," she said. "I did tie 100 ribbons on my walking stick." "But that's not the only reason," said Grandma Maggie. "My Aunt Lula is 100 years old." "Wow!" was all the children could say, and the sound of it whooshed across the room like wind on the playground. Let's notice and wonder on this page. I notice in the background a 100th day snack. Ooh, 25 raisins, 25 chocolate chips, 25 banana chips, 25 walnuts. Ooh, 25, 25, 25, and 25 make 100. Aunt Lula and I are going to help you make a special snack, Grandma Maggie said, unrolling a chart with their recipe written on it. After all the kids finished their 100th day snack, they sat together to hear about more projects. Jake was the last to share his 100th day project. "I made a picture book of 100 memories, except I forgot it this morning," he said. "But that's okay, because Mrs. Wadsworth helped me make a collection of books from her office. She must have 1,000 of them in there. I put them in 10 stacks of 10, and if you count by tens, that's 100 books." "Jake, that's an excellent collection," said Mr. Thompson. "I know you also worked very hard on your books of 100 memories. Would you like to bring it in tomorrow? We'd love to see it." "It wouldn't be the same, Mr. Thompson. Tomorrow will be 101 days of school." "You're right about that," Jake's teacher said, nodding. Jake sat thinking for a moment. He looked at Grandma Maggie with a twinkle in his eyes, and then he whispered something to Mr. Thompson. "Good idea, Jake," said his teacher. "Grandma Maggie, would you please stand with Aunt Lula near the book cart?" Jake said as he headed out the door. "I'll be right back." When Jake returned to the classroom with Mrs. Wadsworth, Aunt Lula said, "All right now, let's show him some teeth." And Mr. Thompson snapped their picture. The next day, Jake brought his picture book of 100 memories to share with the class, but it wasn't the 100th day anymore. Now it was the 101st day of school, and that meant one more page. And a picture everyone remembered. The picture says, 100th day of school, me with Aunt Lula, Grandma Maggie, Mrs. Wadsworth, and 100 books. Well, what do you think, Awesome Possums? Did you like the story? Did Jake solve his problem? Was everybody happy at the end? Well, I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you come back and join me again another time for another great story from the Awesome Possum Classroom. Bye-bye.